Hey, I remember one. Let me take this. Where's this cup? Sorry. I drink a lot of Wawa coffee. Those of you not from the Philadelphia region, this is my favorite store. I you can't really buy stock in them. They only sell stock to their employees. Um, yeah. So it's interesting. I like to say that my parents were kind of like ambiguously ethnic. Like, my mother looked completely white to me. She looked like she was kind of Italian, and it turns out that I am kind of Italian. I'm more Italian than I am anything else, while at the same time, I'm an African American. But anyway, my father was, a bit darker. I get my nose and my skin color and my bald head kinda like from my dad, although my mother's father was also bald. And a couple of my uncles, or at least one of them. Anyway, there seemed to be a kind of what I call internalized white supremacy in my family, particularly on my father's side. My father um, learned German, which is really interesting to me because I mean that he was born in 1925. He was in the United States Air Force during World War II, never actually left the country, but so he saw the rise of Nazism and Hitler, and then chose to go to Germany after Nazism was over to the University of Heidelberg, which I thought was particularly for an African American to go to Germany. Although W.B. Du Bois went to Germany, um, and I wonder if my dad's view was to embrace what whoever he thinks are the winners, in other words, like they were top, they were kind of like, and to some extent, maybe they are still. They were certainly at the top of technology and science at the time, I would imagine. So maybe that was just the best place to go. He was very proud of going to the University of Heidelberg. He went to the University of Pennsylvania as an undergrad. And I remember he and I were sitting at the University of Pennsylvania, and he was saying, "This place is really nothing compared to Heidelberg, which is, I guess, is about 800 years old." So he's fluent in German. I have a half German sister. But what's really interesting is one time he he almost seemed to look down on black people, um, even though he was in the alphas, even though I lived in a predominantly black neighborhood. I remember my mother got a book that I mean it was Henry Louis Gates put out the book, and was it like a Diary of a Slave Girl? Actually, I'll look that up for a moment. Let me see. Diary of a Slave Girl. Yeah, Diary of a Slave Girl. I think that was. Let me see. Huh. It was something that Henry Louis Gates had found, and excuse me, sorry about that. Oh, I can't find it. I think that Oprah had it on, and unfortunately, my mother ran right out. Oprah would, whatever book she would recommend, my mom would just go out and get it. Oprah had a kind of cachet or that kind of power, and how did this happen? We're sitting at the table, my father, my mother and brother and I, and my mother showed her new book, and my father oh, that's right, he said that slavery was good for black people. That's what my father said. That's unbelievable, actually. That really that's really, was kind of a confusing comment because, like, how could you think slavery would have been good for black people? That's something that Ron DeSantis said, right? Now here's my father, who's an African American psychiatrist, is saying that, right? That's crazy, okay? That kinda messed up my whole view of, like, what does it mean to be a doctor, you know? Like, what kind of a ridiculous comment was that? So I said to him, because I'm sort of sarcastic, or I try to have, like, a quick wit. I said, "Well, wouldn't you have been a slave?" And he got really angry. He said, "Well, I would have owned you." And it's kind of interesting because quite often he referred to my brother and I as oxen. He said, "I would have owned you." Like, that's and he, uh, yeah, see, so I got put down a lot actually as a child. No wonder I've been through a lot of therapy. It's taken a lot of therapy for me to reverse that kind of comment, because I used to get comments like that all the time, and my brother got more of them, just calling us ox and just you're slow as molasses and you never really amount to anything. I would get, and it's no wonder that I'm like a cognitive therapist, because uh those kind of comments really have an impact on me, and on people in general. You start if you, particularly if you internalize that stuff, that's bad news. And then on top of that, you get spanked and hit. I'm 100% against corporal punishment. Does a lot of damage to people. I don't care what anybody says about it. No, you don't want to be totally permissive, but at the same time, hitting kids does not help them in any way, shape, or form. And saying things like that. And what's really disturbing is you do see a lot of so-called people of color who, and I've done it myself, unfortunately, sort of embrace white supremacist thinking. And look at Nikki Haley, for example. I mean, what's her story? Her father was Indian and taught at HBCU, and she had said, one, that the Civil War had nothing to do with slavery. Slavery had nothing to do with the Civil War, and also that it was never, the United States was never a racist country, or she doesn't think it's a racist country. She's in a racist party. Donald Trump's a racist, but she can't. And then you got her, then you got Ron DeSantis. Well, luckily he's out. She's soon to be out, but then you're just gonna have Trump. And then, even though the Democrats are more diverse looking, I remember Hillary and even Bernie, they kind of uh, dismiss out of hand the idea of reparations. So, yeah, that was like a really disturbing moment of my childhood. I was a teen. I might have even been an adult when my father said that. Like, what was that about? So I really do wonder, like, what was his thinking? Why would he, you know, I guess he just only affiliates with the winners, maybe, and he thinks that black people are losers because they were slaves. Because he also would not really want too much to do with anything African American. Although that's not true. That's not fair, because he was, like I said, Alpha, Puss and Jack and Jill. We did live in a affluent African American neighborhood. So, but I think he was like enthralled by Germany and England, maybe not England so much. It's funny because I'm actually more English than I am. Uh, Certainly, I mean, I'm not German at all. I think maybe like 1% French, which was kind of surprising because I thought my mother was from New Orleans, so I thought I would have more French ancestry, but I actually do not. But yeah, that was really terrible. Slavery was good for black people, and I would have owned you. And that's what he really that was the first thing that came out of his mouth when he was angry. So I think he really meant it, you know? That was really his mentality, sadly. And I've had to kinda try to reverse that thinking in my own mind.